What if I told you that every revolution, every viral trend, every cultural earthquake that reshapes our world starts with a single spark? A spark so small, so unassuming, that you'd dismiss it as harmless. But here's the truth. That spark is a virus. And you, yes, you, are either its host, its victim, or its cure. Welcome to The Tipping Point, where Malcolm Gladwell dissects how ideas spread like pandemics. This isn't just a book. This is a manifesto for infection. And by the end of this hour, you'll either be immune or you'll catch the fever. Chapter 1. The 3 Rules of Epidemics. Let's begin by asking, why did Hush Puppy's shoes go from dead to dominant in 2 years? Why did New York City's crime rate plummet overnight? Because epidemics, whether of disease, fashion, or violence, follow 3 laws. Laws you can weaponize. Let's infect your mind with them. Part 1. The Law of the Few. Gladwell's first rule. Epidemics are driven by the law of the few, not the masses. A tiny minority, 0.01%, are the supercarriers. These are the connectors, Mavens, and Salesmen. Let's dissect them like a pathogen under a microscope. A. Connectors. Connectors are human hyperlinks. They don't just know people. They colonize networks. Think of the friend who introduces you to your future spouse, your boss, and your therapist. But here's the twist. Are you a connector? Or are you just another node in someone else's web? Imagine this. Tomorrow you lose your phone. How many lives could you rebuild from memory? 50? 100? 500? Connectors don't need phones. Their brains are databases. Their currency? Access. If you're not a connector, you're dependent on one. So ask yourself, who controls your world? 1B. Mavens. Mavens are obsessive information traders. They're not salesmen. They're curators. The friend who texts you, that $20 blender you want, it's $12.67 on Amazon until 3 p.m. They spread ideas not for power, but for truth. But here's the trap. In a world drowning in fake news, are Mavens the cure or the carriers? Think of the last fact you shared. Did you verify it? Or did you regurgitate it like a zombie? Mavens don't spread rumors. They autopsy them. So, are you a thinker or a middleman for lies? 1C. Salesmen. Salesmen are emotional hackers. They don't persuade, they infect. Their tools, tonality, micro-expressions, the pause before, trust me. Ever bought something you hated just because the seller's smile felt like sunlight? That's a salesman's virus in your brain. But here's the question. Who's sold you lately? Your job, your beliefs, your self-doubt? Wake up. Every day, salesmen are scripting your life. The real epidemic isn't what they sell. It's that you don't realize you've already bought it. So are you a connector, a maven, or a salesman, or are you just infected? Part 2. The stickiness factor. Rule 2. Stickiness. Not all ideas survive. Most die like flies. But a few, they mutate. They dig into your cortex. They stick. But why? Gladwell asks, why did Sesame Street fail until they added Big Bird? Because sticky messages aren't just clear, they're unforgettable. By The Anatomy of Sticky. In the 1990s, kids ignored Sesame Street's educational scenes. The cure? Researchers injected distraction, a cartoon bird babbling beside the lesson, and suddenly, kids learned. Why? Because sticky ideas are flawed. They're messy, human. They don't make sense. They make you feel. Your LinkedIn post flopped. Your sermon bored even you. You prioritized polish over poison. You sterilize the virus. Remember, perfection doesn't spread, contagion does. B. The stickiness audit. Let's conduct an autopsy. Think of the last ad, speech, or text you remembered. Was it logical? Or did it hijack your senses? Did it itch in your brain? Here's your challenge. Rewrite your LinkedIn bio, your dating profile, your elevator pitch. Inject one irrational detail, a childhood nickname, a scar story. Make it sticky, make it alive, or keep being ignored. Your choice. TikTok. Your ideas are dying. What will you mutate today? Part 3. The power of context. Rule 3. Context. Epidemics are exquisitely sensitive to their environment. New York's crime rate didn't drop because of new laws or jobs. It dropped because police scrubbed subway graffiti and arrested fare beaters. Fix the context, and epidemics starve. Mine. A. The broken windows theory. A shattered window left unfixed signals anarchy. So vandals break more windows. Then muggers prowl. Then murderers strike. Crime isn't about evil, it's about permission. Context whispers, no one cares, go ahead. What broken windows exist in your life? The cluttered desk that kills productivity? The toxic friend who normalizes Bao Yuan? You think you're immune to context? Look around. Your environment is scripting your behavior. Now, will you clean your windows or wait for the riot? The B. The 150 rule. Ever heard of Dunbar's number? Human tribes max out at 150. Beyond that, trust crumbles. Gladwell proves it. Gore-Tex's factories cap at 150 employees. No titles, no hierarchies, just innovation. So why are you chasing 10,000 Instagram followers? You're not building a community. You're curating a mob. Downsize your circle to 150, prune the dead weight, or keep drowning in noise. The next epidemic starts where? Maybe in your living room, your office, your DMs. Change the context, or become its patient zero. Closing and call to action. You've now been exposed to the 3 rules, the law of the few, stickiness, context. But this isn't a bedtime story. This is a contagion, and I've just patient zeroed your brain. So what will you do? Will you map your connections and find your connectors? Will you autopsy your ideas and make them stick? Will you smash the broken windows poisoning your potential? Or will you sit there, asymptomatic, as someone else's epidemic consumes your future? Gladwell gave you the science. I've given you the virus. The cure? Action. Now. Today. Infect someone. Mutate an idea. Clean a window. This audiobook isn't ending. It's replicating. And you're its host. The tipping point isn't coming. It's here. And it's yours to ignite. Chapter 2. The Law of the Few. You've been lied to. They told you revolutions need armies. That change demands consensus. But Malcolm Gladwell is about to rip that lie to shreds. Welcome to Chapter 2. The Law of the Few. Here's the truth. The world isn't changed by the masses. It's hijacked by a tiny, invisible cartel, the 0.001% who operate like sleeper agents. By the end of this hour, you'll either join them or remain their puppet. Let's begin the infection. In 1775, Paul Revere didn't warn thousands. He alerted one, a connector. That night, a virus called revolution spread. Today, the same law governs TikTok trends, stock market crashes, and you. This chapter isn't theory. It's a blueprint. And you're either the architect or the rubble. Part 1. Connectors. The human network. Connectors aren't just social. They're superorganisms. Their networks aren't contacts. They're colonies. Gladwell says they live in the magic 100. People with over 100 relationships they can activate like sleeper cells. But let's dissect this parasite. Chao A. The Science of Weak Ties. In 1973, sociologist Mark Granovetter proved, your next job won't come from your best friend. It'll come from a weak tie, the acquaintance you barely remember. Connectors thrive on weak ties. They're bridges between worlds. But here's the twist. Weak ties are weak because they're disposable. Connectors use people, or are you being used? Audit your last 10 LinkedIn messages. How many were to close friends? How many to strangers? If you're not mining weak ties, you're irrelevant. Harsh? Truth is a virus. Let it burn. 1B. The Kevin Bacon Paradox. 6 degrees of separation, connectors collapse it to 2. They're the reason you're 3 handshakes from a CEO, but still unemployed. Because connectors don't just know people, they own them. Think of that friend who knows a guy for everything. Now ask, are you their guy? You. If your Rolodex isn't making others jealous, you're the Rolodex. Stop collecting business cards. Start collecting leverage. C. The dark side of connection. In 2016, Cambridge Analytica didn't hack 50 million profiles. They hacked connectors, the 300,000 users with the most followers. Through them, they infected 50 million. Connectors are force multipliers and single points of failure. So I'll ask again, who owns your network? Music swells with dissonant strings. Reboot your mindset. Every conversation is a vector. Every handshake is a host. Start spreading. Part 2. Mavens, the data demons. Mavens aren't experts. They're obsessives. They don't want followers. They want disciples. Gladwell calls them information brokers, but that's too kind. They're black market librarians trading in secrets. Let's crack their code. A. The price tag psychosis. Meet the Maven. She knows the exact calorie count in your latte, the hidden fee in your mortgage, the pH level of your shampoo. She's not showing off. She's rewiring you. Because information is power, but curated information is control. When's the last time you fact-checked a fact, Googled a statistic, or did you just swallow it like a good little host? Mavens weaponize your laziness. Stop consuming. Start dissecting. Sakyam 2B. The Yelp Paradox. Yelp's top reviewers aren't critics. They're Mavens. They post 500 reviews a year for free. Why? Because Mavens are addicts. Their drug? Influence. Every 5-star rating is a dopamine hit. Every rant is a cry for validation. But here's the trap. You're outsourcing your decisions to strangers with a keyboard. Delete your Yelp app. Walk into a random restaurant. Taste, judge, think, or keep letting Mavens puppet your palate. 2C. The Maven's Gambit. In 1999, a Maven named Harry Markopoulos discovered Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme. He warned the SEC, who ignored him. Why? Because Mavens are Cassandra, cursed to see truth but never be believed, unless they learn to sell. Knowledge is worthless without contagion. So, are you a librarian or a bomber? Part 3. Salesmen, the emotion engineers. Wow. Salesmen don't persuade, they hijack. Their tools aren't words, they're neurochemicals. They weaponize mirror neurons, dopamine loops, and the primal need to belong. Let's expose their playbook. The Tom Sawyer strategy. Remember when Tom convinced his friends to pay him to paint Aunt Polly's fence? That's Salesman 101. Make the victim beg to be exploited. How? Flip scarcity into status. Make them feel chosen. Ever bought a limited edition you didn't need? Congratulations, you've been Tom Sawyered. The next time someone says exclusive offer, ask, exclusive to whom? The gullible? 3b. The mimicry epidemic. Salesmen use mirroring, subtly copying your posture, tone, even blinking. It triggers trust. But here's the horror. You're being mirrored, right now. By me. By influencers. By your boss. Your guard is down because your ape brain thinks, they're like me. Lati, who's mimicking you, and why? Wake up. Your loyalty is being hacked. Now, 3C, the cult of charisma. Hitler, MLK, Steve Jobs, different morals, same tool, charisma. Gladwell warns that salesmen's ideas spread not because they're right, but because they're sticky. But what if Hitler had been boring? What if your boss is a tyrant with a smile? Charisma isn't a gift, it's a grenade. Refuse to kneel to charm, demand proof, or sign your autonomy away. Closing and call to action. You've now met the few, connectors, mavens, salesmen. But this isn't a history lesson, it's a diagnosis. You're infected. The symptoms? Anger, clarity, the urge to act. Let me prescribe your cure. Step 1. Map your network. Who's a connector? Who's a maven? Who's a salesman? Label them. Then, become them. Step 2. Infect someone. Share a secret. Mirror a stranger. Forge a weak tie. Step 3. Burn your old self. The you that trusted, obeyed, and consumed is dead. The few don't follow. They metastasize. Gladwell gave you the law. I've given you the knife. Now cut. Or be cut. The epidemic is here. Will you be its carrier or its casualty? The tipping point isn't a book. It's a battleground. Choose your side.